If you've ever wondered what actually gets your clinic to show up on Google, this is it. I actually went to Google's new AI-powered search tool to break down exactly what matters for local SEO percent by percent. And the answers, they even surprised me. It's different than what your traditional SEO service advice is. So in this episode, I'm going to give you your cheat sheet to ranking in 2025. And if you're not doing these things, you're going to get beat by somebody who is. I think clinics right now have a huge advantage to take advantage of the new search features that are inside of Google. There's a ton of untapped potential with the way that page one in Google is now showing Google business profiles, and showing maps, and showing paid advertising. This has totally changed from what we were seeing on page one of Google 6 to 12 months ago. For the last few months, I really was just working off of a theory that I had that was based on what I was seeing in search and reading some of the Google documentation for their new updates. So here's what I did is I opened up Google's new AI mode and I asked the question every clinic owner wants to know. What are the most important ranking factors for local businesses and how much weight do they actually carry? To my surprise, or not really a surprise because this AI searches are super smart and they're really, really detailed, it gave me a clean pie chart with estimated percentages showing where you should be putting your time and your money. Not guesses, not fluff. This is actual tactful info. If you're listening to this right now, head on over to our YouTube channel so you can see the visuals that I'm going to be walking through. I'll show you the exact searches and the results that it gave me. It's going to make a little bit more sense so you can see the full breakdown. Let's break down this pie chart. So what Google gave me and what Google's AI gave me for local SEO ranking factors was it said that your Google business profile accounts for 35% of your local SEO ranking. On-page technical SEO is going to be 20%, reviews 15%, backlinks, citations, directories being listed in is another 10%, user behavior is 10%, and proximity to that search is another 10%. Some of you that are spending hours and doing like old school SEO tactics of just trying to stuff keywords on your pages, but you're ignoring your Google business profile, getting backlinks, getting listed in local directories, getting Google reviews. That's the stuff that actually drives your rankings and is what's going to get you onto page one. So you need to be prioritizing this stuff. So let's break down what each one of these means and what you can actually do about it. So the first one, but the biggest piece of the pie here is going to be your Google business profile. This is becoming the king of local SEO. Your Google business profile is what shows up in maps. It's the little red card with your hours, your reviews, your photos, all of it. And it used to just kind of like live in the right sidebar. It would only show up if somebody searched for your brand and your branded term. So like if somebody searched for Ripple Physical Therapy, your Google business profile would show up on the right side. That is not happening anymore. That still happens, but these business profiles are now showing up with organic searches as well. So what you need to do with your Google business profile is you need to make sure this thing is optimized. A lot of clinics, when I'm doing their SEO audits for them, or we're doing the SEO work for them inside of Patch, if they're Patch members and we're doing this SEO for them, is I'm realizing that they just like when they started their business, they got their Google business profile set up and they just kind of skipped through everything just to hit finish, and they didn't actually fill this out, and there's no thought or intention behind setting up their Google business profile. That is not good. That cannot be the case. So you need to make sure that this is filled out and it actually has some sustenance to it. So first thing you need to do is make sure that your NAP is 100% accurate. So NAP or NAPS is going to be your name, address, phone number, and we can also add services to that as well because we're a local service-based business. So you need to make sure that not only are you talking about your NAPs, but they're consistent throughout all the different parts of your Google business profile that you're getting listed in. You need to make sure you're picking the right primary and secondary categories. You need to put, again, some thought into that. You need to have real photos of your space and your team. There's a spot to put exterior photos. You need to make sure you're doing that. These photos, they need to be updated consistently. You need to make sure that you have products and services and updates and that you're posting these things not only once at the setup, but also on an ongoing basis. These are things that you need to be adding weekly, if not every other week at the minimum if you're doing everything else. Because if this is not fully optimized, then you're very clearly leaving money on the table because this is the number one ranking factor for local SEO right now. So you need to make sure that your Google business profile is set up. The next thing that you need to be worried about is going to be on-page SEO. This is actually where your website comes in. It's like the technical SEO. It's all the back end of your website. This used to be the number one ranking for SEO. And if you just optimize the back end and the technical SEO side of things, you're going to start to really rank really quickly. What this means is that you need to make sure that you have your metadata dialed in. You need to make sure all of your pages have schema markup, you have this sitemap dialed in, you're adding local service pages, etc., etc. And, when you're thinking about your on-page SEO, the things that matter are going to be making sure that your website has a mobile-friendly design. So the usability of your website is very fast, and Google knows that most searches are happening on mobile now. If your website isn't mobile-friendly and responsive in nature, then it's going to derank you. You need to make sure that your website loads fast. You need to make sure that you have keyword-rich service pages on your websites. Something like, so if you're a clinic in Austin and you specialize in ACL, you need to make sure that you have ACL Physical Therapy Austin, Texas service page. You need to make sure that you have a dry needling Austin, Texas service page. Things like that. You need to have a page for each one of those, and you need to make sure that the site mapping is done correctly. This is something that's often missed, and we've started adding this within our Patch SEO offering, and it's made a huge difference and really moved the needle really quickly in people's rankings. You need to make sure with technical SEO that you have a clear, readable structure that helps Google understand what your site is about. So again, like when Google goes and it crawls your website, so it's understanding what pages you have, all these pages linked together. If you don't know what site mapping is, then you should. This is what this means. This is now becoming a really big part of the user journey, and Google is now auditing the user journey. And really, this is all about how Google is scanning your website. So you need to make sure that you have your site mapping and there's a really clear structure involved with your website to make it easy to use. To be honest, you're probably hearing all of this stuff and being like, I don't know what you're talking about, which is totally fine. This is why I usually suggest most clinic owners just outsource something like this, because this is not worth your time and effort to learn these things and take a couple of years to get really good at SEO when you can just outsource it. And especially if you're working with a company that is ahead of the game on these things and understands what Google's looking for now, you can start to rank really quickly with this stuff. So that's going to be point number 2. Point number 3 is going to be Google reviews. Reviews aren't just social proof. It's ranking fuel now. And I always talk about Google reviews as like the digital word of mouth. You may have built your clinic on in-person word of mouth, but if you want your growth to spread like wildfire, getting Google reviews is a really good way to do this. And now we know like Google's actually telling us that it's prioritizing this, which is awesome. I saw this trend happening earlier this year where like clinics that had a lot more Google reviews were ranking a lot higher on Google. I actually did a podcast about it back in January. This is podcast number 9, and it talks about like all the different ways that you can get Google reviews. So if you struggle getting Google reviews and you're not getting consistent Google reviews, definitely go back and watch that, because what matters with Google reviews is volume. So the more reviews, the better. We're seeing currently like clinics that have less than 100 reviews, they're getting downranked on Google Maps. 100 is kind of that threshold right now. So you need to get to that 100 mark. Recency is a big factor as well. So like, when was the last time you got a Google review, and are you getting them regularly? Like an ideal, really healthy situation is where you're getting anywhere from 2 to 5 Google reviews every single month. This is where a CRM setup comes into play. And if you have this email automation set up that asks for Google reviews for all of your new patients, it's pretty easy to get a handful of Google reviews every single month if you have that automation done. There's a bit of a follow-up there. You need to make sure you're responding to your Google reviews. So you need to reply to every single one, even the bad ones and even the really good ones. And with reviews, you need to make sure that you have diversity with these as well, right? So you obviously want Google, that's going to be the main factor, but having reviews on Yelp and Facebook and niche platforms is going to be really helpful and really important. Adding a strategy here to remind yourself to ask patients for reviews when they get 8 weeks into a plan of care, they're on visit 4, whatever you think is going to work best. This now is, again, a non-negotiable, and you really have to incentivize getting Google reviews. So that's going to be point number 3. Point number 4 is going to be link building in citations. This is the one that 99% of clinics that I do SEO audits for miss. So it's pretty much everybody is not doing this. And again, this is where I think of like Google's telling us that this is important. 99% of clinics are not doing this. So if you can be that 1% that is, that's going to give you a huge leg up, even though this is only, 10 to 15% of the pie, but still a big amount. So during SEO audits, I'm able to scan all of the local directories for that clinic and see which they're listed in, which they're not, and which ones like have inconsistent data. So most clinics within the local directories, right, they're listed in Google and Facebook, maybe they're in Yelp, or they've been listed in their local chamber of commerce, but that's really it. They're not in Bing, they're not in Easy Local, they're not in Foursquare, because nobody's ever heard of those. But these are local directories that you need to understand, what local directories are and get yourself listed in these. Because what Google does is it crawls whenever somebody types in like physical therapy near me. Google will try to see who all of the physical therapy clinics are in the area and which physical therapy clinics they think are legit and they have the most trust with. So part of understanding that trust is seeing which local directories your business is located in. And if you're not listed in these random local directories, even though no one's going to find you on Foursquare, Google's looking at that to see if you're listed there, to see if you're actually a legit business. Those local directories are backlinks. They're like online referrals. So Google's going to see them and they're going to go, oh, like this business must be trustworthy because it's also listed somewhere else. So you need to make sure that you're getting listed in all the local directories, Chamber of Commerce, PT associations, whatever it might be. You do this yourself. It's going to take hours to do, and make sure you do it, or you can pay someone else to do it. This is part of our local SEO offering that we do for people in Patch, because who has time to get yourself set up in every single one of these accounts? You can also, reach out to local blogs or news sites. There's a lot of like Best in Boston or businesses that are being featured locally in, certain blogs or websites. Get yourself listed in those. Those are really big indicators that, you're getting these backlinks and that your business is legit. And you need to make sure you're managing these things over time. This is something I think is super low hanging fruit, really easy to do, time consuming for sure, but you're going to want to make sure that you're listed in all local directories that you can be, and you're getting backlinks from local websites. All right, we're getting to the last two parts of these. The last two is going to be user behavior and proximity. These are 5 to 10% of the local SEO pie each. With user behavior, really what we're looking at is, Google watches how people interact with your site. One of the biggest changes that I saw in the new recent Google documentation is that it's now prioritizing usability of your website. This is really not something that I was doing before. Before, it would just scan the back end of your coding of your website and really look at the technical SEO that I talked about earlier. But now what it's doing is the AI crawlers can really act as humans. So if your site looks like and interacts and the usability feels like it was built in 2015, then you're not going to rank. So ask yourself, do they click? Do they stay? Do they bounce? What is the average session time? These metrics are what Google is now using to rank your actual website. So to improve these things, you can write compelling page titles and meta descriptions that actually make people click, make your website super easy to read and navigate. Big text, not walls of text, really high quality images, videos, real content that people can engage with. And if your site is boring and it's hard to read and hard to use, Google's going to assume your business is as well. And if people are bouncing off of your website, then you're less likely to show up on page one. So user behavior is becoming really, really important. I expect that percentage of the pie to go up, to be totally honest with you. And the last part of all of this stuff is proximity. So this one's pretty simple. How close is the person searching for physical therapy to your clinic? You can't control this, but you can control your targeting. If you're in an area, you want to make sure that you have service pages for each neighborhood that you want to rank in. We recently just did this for a clinic that was in Orlando, Florida. Orlando is obviously a big area, but there's certain pockets of Orlando that are a little bit more affluent, and a lot more of the people come from that area to the clinic. But the clinic's not necessarily in that area. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that we have service pages for that specific neighborhood, even though our Google Business Profile address isn't in that neighborhood. If we can build some site structure around that neighborhood, that's how we're going to start ranking. You can do things like mention landmarks and zip codes and local references in your content, get involved with the community and get local backlinks. That's going to help as well. Most clinics really only target like one city or town or neighborhood, when they could really rank in 5 people within a 5 to 10 mile radius. If you have a really good product, people are going to drive to come and see you for it. Listen, here's the deal. You don't need to be perfect in all 6 of these things, but if you're completely ignoring your business profile, you're not getting reviews, you haven't touched your website since 2015, you're going to get left behind. The good news is that fixing these things is way easier than you think, especially when you know what to focus on. So I just gave you the playbook. Go and try to run it. And if you want to a little bit more insight on what things you should be fixing, you can head on over to the description of this podcast. There's going to be a link there. This link will give you a free SEO audit. And what I do is I'll look at the domain authority of your website, where you're ranking on Google Maps, see what directories you're actually listed in, and we'll give you just an audit of the things that you can be fixing and what needs to be updated. So don't wait till your competitors beat you to this stuff. This is totally brand new. I think this is a really big opportunity. I think you can start getting onto page one quite easily if you do the right things. So head on over, get that free SEO audit. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. If you found this was helpful, head on over to the YouTube channel as well. Make sure you subscribe there. Take a look at the search results. We'll make sure that those get put up on there, and I will talk to you guys soon.